My best man speech was supposed to start at 7. At 6:50, I found them in the coat room. Not together. Not like that. But close enough that her hand was on his chest and his forehead was bent down toward hers like he was about to tell her a secret the rest of the world wasn't allowed to hear. I stepped back into the hallway before either of them saw me. My heart didn't race. That's the part that still haunts me. It went quiet. The way a room goes quiet when someone says something that can't be unsaid. I walked back to the bar and ordered a whiskey I didn't drink. I set it down. I picked it up. I set it down again. Her name is Nadia. His name is Carter. And 3 hours earlier, I had shaken that man's hand and called him brother. It started 6 months before the wedding. Nadia came home one night with her coat still on, keys still in her hand, standing in the kitchen doorway like she'd forgotten how to walk through a room she'd lived in for 2 years. "Carter's back," she said. That was it. 2 words. The way you'd say the weather changed or the milk went bad. Flat. Careful. "Carter who?" I asked, even though some part of me already knew the answer was going to cost me something. "My friend from college. Carter Reeves." She set her keys on the counter. Didn't look at me. "He's moving back to the city." I ran into him outside the grocery store. I remember thinking she was being strange about it, that the casualness was too practiced, like she'd rehearsed the line on the drive home and delivered it a degree too flat to be natural. I didn't say that. I said, "That's cool. We should all get drinks sometime." She said, "Yeah, maybe." Neither of us moved on it for 3 weeks. Then he showed up at our engagement party. Nadia had told me she'd invited a few extra friends, people from her past whom she wanted there. I hadn't asked for a list. I trusted her. That's what you do when you're 8 months into an engagement and you've already put a deposit down on a venue in Connecticut. Carter Reeves was tall in a way that made a room rearrange itself. Not loud, not performing, just present in the way certain people are present, like the air pressure changes when they walk in. Dark hair, easy smile, the kind of laugh that made you want to be the one who caused it. Nadia introduced us at the bar. Her hand was on my arm when she did it, and I remember thinking that felt deliberate. An anchor, something to hold on to while the introduction happened. "This is Carter," she said. "He's one of my oldest friends." He shook my hand. Firm, direct eye contact. "She talks about you constantly," he said. "You're a lucky man." I said, "I know." He said, "Good. Never forget it." I laughed. Because what else do you do? By the end of the night, my best friend Dominic had pulled me to the side near the dessert table and said, in the diplomatic way only Dom can manage, "Who's the guy Nadia keeps gravitating toward?" I said, "Old friend from college." Dom said, Ate a small chocolate thing. Said nothing else. Dom is not a man of many words. But when he says like that, he is saying an entire novel. I went home that night and did what insecure people do at midnight when their brain won't shut off. I typed Carter Reeves into Instagram, found his account, scrolled back 2 years. And there it was, a photo of him and Nadia at some rooftop party, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her, both of them laughing at something outside the frame. The caption said, "To the best ones." The date was 4 months before Nadia, and I had our first date. I put my phone down, told myself it was nothing, told myself everyone has a history, told myself I was being insane. Then I picked the phone back up and looked at the photo again. I asked her about it the next morning. Casual, coffee in my hand, standing in the kitchen like it wasn't the thing I'd been awake about since 2 a.m. "Were you and Carter ever a thing?" She didn't flinch. That either meant she was telling the truth or she'd already prepared for the question. "We dated briefly," she said. "Sophomore and junior year. It ended mutually. We were better as friends." How long is briefly? 14 months. 14 months is not briefly. 14 months is a relationship. 14 months is birthdays and holidays and learning how someone sleeps. I said, "Why didn't you tell me that when you mentioned he was back?" She looked at me. Not defensive, just steady. "Because I knew you'd make it into something." There it was. Not a lie. Something worse. A truth packaged as a preemptive strike. And what would I be making it into? I asked. "This," she said, and walked out of the kitchen. The weeks that followed were fine. Surface fine. The kind of fine that functions perfectly well in public and says almost nothing after 9 p.m. Carter started showing up more. Dinners with her group of friends. A birthday party for someone I'd never met. A Sunday afternoon at a brewery where he and Nadia stood at the end of the bar talking in low voices for 40 minutes while I played darts with people I'd known for 6 hours. I watched them from across the room. Not because I'm the jealous type. I want to be clear about that. I've never been the man who monitors his partner's phone or interrogates her friendships. I'm not built that way. But something was off. And the specific thing that was off was this. When she was with him, she laughed differently. Not louder, not freer, just more true. Like the laugh she used everywhere else was a conversation she was having with the world, and the laugh she used with him was a conversation she was having with herself. You can't tell your fiancé that. There's no sentence that begins with "your laugh sounds different with him" that ends anywhere good. So I said nothing. 3 months before the wedding, Nadia's maid of honor, her sister, Priya, called me on a Thursday afternoon. Priya and I had always been solid. She was the one who told Nadia to give me a chance after our third date when Nadia was apparently still deciding. I owed Priya something I didn't have a word for. "Hey," she said, "I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to not be weird about it." I said, "Okay. How do you feel about Carter being in the wedding?" I went still. "What do you mean, in the wedding?" Priya exhaled. A long, careful exhale. "Nadia wants to ask him to be one of her groomsmen. On your side. She thinks it would be weird to put him on the bride's side since she has enough people and he has no connection to them. She wanted me to feel you out first." The fact that she didn't come to me herself hit me in a place I didn't know could be reached from a phone call. "She sent you to ask," I said. "She's scared of how you'll respond." That should tell her something. Priya was quiet for a long time. Then she said, quietly, "I know. I told Nadia that night I needed to talk about Carter." She set down her fork at dinner. Not surprised. Prepared. "Priya called me." I said, "I know. You went through your sister instead of coming to me." I was trying to be thoughtful about it. By not being honest about it. I was honest. I just didn't want to fight. "Nadia." I waited until she actually looked at me. "He's your ex. He was in your life for over a year. You didn't tell me that when you mentioned he was back. He's been at every social event for 2 months. And now you want him standing next to me at our wedding." She said nothing. "Tell me why," I said. Not the version that's designed to reassure me. The real one. She was quiet for long enough that I counted the seconds. Got to 11. "He's important to me," she said. "He's always been important to me. And I don't want to have to choose between my life with you and the people who were part of the life that made me." It was a good answer. It was an honest answer. It was the kind of answer that made me want to trust her and be frightened by her at the same time. "I need you to tell me there's nothing there," I said. "There's nothing there." She said it looking directly at me. No hesitation. No flinch. And I believed her. God help me. I believed her. 2 months later, my own best man had a family emergency 2 weeks before the wedding. His father had a heart attack. He was flying to Phoenix and wouldn't be back in time. He called me crying. I told him to go. Family first. That was never a question. But that left me without a best man 12 days out. Nadia suggested Carter. She suggested it quietly. Over text. At 11 o'clock at night, when I was half asleep and my brain was still processing the phone call with Marcus. I stared at my phone for a long time. Then I typed, "Okay." One word. The wrong word. The word that set everything in motion. Carter was good at the role. That was the worst part. He handled the bachelor party logistics without being asked twice. He was at the rehearsal dinner early, introducing himself to my family with warmth that wasn't performed. My Uncle Dave, whose default mode is suspicion of anyone he hasn't known for 20 years, clapped Carter on the shoulder after 15 minutes and said, "Good man, glad he's up there with you." I smiled. Said, "Yeah." My cousin Letitia, who has never in her life failed to notice anything, pulled me aside at the rehearsal dinner bar and said, "How do you feel about him?" I said, "He's a good guy." She said, "That's not what I asked." I said, "I know." She watched me carefully, then said, "Just keep your eyes open." I didn't know what that meant. I didn't ask, because some part of me was afraid she'd tell me. The morning of the wedding, I was getting ready in the bridal suite antechamber with Carter and my other groomsmen. It was fine. Easy. Champagne at 10 a.m., which I do not normally endorse, but when it's your wedding day, you permit yourself certain things. Carter helped me with my cufflinks. My hands were shaking slightly, not from doubt, but from the strange enormity of the day. The way everything feels too large to hold. He didn't say anything while he did it, just worked the clasp carefully. Then he stepped back and looked at me. "You love her," he said. "More than I've loved anything," I said. He nodded. Something moved across his face. Fast. Gone before I could name it. Good, he said. She deserves that. I should have asked him then. I should have looked him in the eye and asked him directly. But you don't do that on your wedding day. You don't break the morning like that. So I let it pass. 6:50 p.m. I walked past the coat room to grab my speech cards from my jacket pocket, which I'd left hanging on the rack an hour earlier. The door was ajar. Not open. Just not closed. I heard her voice first. Carter. Just the name. But the way you say a name when the name itself is a sentence. I stopped. I know, he said. I know. I needed you to know that I'm happy. I can see that. And I needed you to know that what we were, I don't carry it anymore. Not the way I used to. A beat. Not the way you used to, he said quietly. Not quite a question. And then I pushed the door open. They separated immediately. Not guilty fast. Not caught fast. Just aware that the space had changed. Nadia looked at me. Her eyes went wide, then soft, then steady. She didn't look like someone caught. She looked like someone who had been waiting for this moment and was deciding, in real time, who she was going to be in it. Carter looked at me and didn't look away. I'll give him that. He didn't look at the floor. The room was quiet for a long time. Marcus. Nadia said my name. Not a defense. Just a reach. Give us a minute, I said to Carter. He walked out. No argument. The door clicked shut. She spoke first. That was me saying goodbye, she said. To what? To whatever I was still holding. From before. What were you holding? She pressed her lips together. Her eyes were wet, but she didn't cry. The version of myself that loved him. And I needed to let her go. Today. Before I walked down that aisle. I stood there. You chose today for that. I chose today because today it was finally true. I looked at her in that coat room in her white dress, her hair pinned back, the earrings I'd picked out catching the low light. She was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen, and I didn't know what to do with that, and also with everything else. Was any of it real? I asked. Not about Carter. About us. The question beneath the question. She crossed the space between us in 3 steps and put both hands on my face. Every single day of it, she said. Every day. I believed her. I also didn't know if believing her was wisdom or weakness. We walked out of that coat room and down the hallway, and she went left toward the bridesmaids, and I went right toward the groomsmen, and at 7 o'clock, she walked down that aisle on her father's arm, and I watched her come toward me, and I said the vows I had written with my own hand at 2 in the morning 3 weeks earlier, and I meant every word. Carter stood 3 feet to my right. He was looking forward. So was I. At no point did our eyes meet. The reception was everything it was supposed to be. The food was good. The dancing went long. My Uncle Dave got emotional during the father-daughter dance. Letitia cornered me near the cake table and looked at my face for a long moment and said, "You okay?" And I said, "I will be." And she nodded like that was the right answer. Carter gave a best man toast that was short, gracious, and gave away nothing. He talked about what he'd observed in Nadia since I came into her life. How she was steadier. How she laughed at different things now, better things. How I had brought out a version of her that he believed was her best one. The room applauded. Nadia was looking at me when he finished. Not at him. I raised my glass. He left before the last dance. He found me at the edge of the dance floor, shook my hand, held it a beat longer than a handshake requires. "Take care of her," he said. "I will." "I know." He nodded once. That's why I could let her. He walked out the venue doors, and I watched him go, and I have not seen him since. That night, in the hotel room, Nadia fell asleep within minutes. The way you sleep when something has finally been put down. Deep and quiet and still. I lay beside her in the dark and thought about the coat room. About what I heard. About what I chose to walk into the ceremony with. I thought about whether the goodbye she gave him was real. Whether the goodbye was hers to give, or whether it was something she was still deciding. I thought about whether the right thing to do was the thing I did, walk down that aisle with that knowledge in my chest, or whether the right thing would have been to stop, to ask more, to demand a conversation that might have detonated the whole day. I thought about trust, what it actually is, not the absence of doubt, not the certainty of history, but the choice you make every single day to extend belief to another person and accept the risk that comes with it. Nadia stirred in her sleep, turned toward me, put her hand on my chest without waking up. I covered her hand with mine. That was 2 years ago. We are still married. We do not fight often. When we do, it is about the things married people fight about: money, time, whose turn it is to be tired. Not about him. Never about him. She hasn't seen Carter since that night. I know because I would know. Not because I monitor her, but because I know her. And the absence of a thing has its own shape when you know what the thing looks like. She is happy. I believe that. I am happy. I am also still, on certain quiet nights, working out the math of what I accepted and what I didn't. That's not a complaint. That's just marriage. Or at least it's the marriage I'm in. Here's the thing I still think about. She said she was letting go of the version of herself that loved him. And I believed her. But I've never once asked the question I'm most afraid to hear answered. Did letting go mean the love was gone? Or just that she decided it wasn't allowed to live in the same place as her life with me? Because those are two very different things. And I don't know which one I prefer to hear. Maybe the answer doesn't change anything. Maybe the life we build day by day is more honest than whatever the interior truth of her heart looked like in a hotel coat room in Connecticut. Maybe the choosing, the daily, unglamorous choosing, is the only love that ever actually counts. Or maybe I'm a man who stood at an altar with his eyes open and decided that was enough. And the question I'll leave you with is this. If the person you chose has never fully closed the door on someone else, but they choose you, fully and without faltering, every single day, is that a love you'd trust? Is that a marriage you'd stay in? And if your answer is no, ask yourself this. Have you ever been loved by anyone who didn't also love someone before you? And did you believe that love was real? There's no clean answer. There never is.